Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Latched Mama podcast. If this is your first time listening and you are a mom or parent in the trenches of parenthood, this podcast is for you. We like to kind of talk about daily mom situations, and we like to kind of just bring light to the fact that it's all hard all the time. Today, we are going to be talking about those big kid emotions and kind of what we like to call temper tantrums, and kind of how to navigate our way through them gently or to the best that we can do. We have Susan Townsend Holt with us today, who is a family life coach. And we're going to be talking about different ways that we can navigate those big emotions and different tools that we can use as a family to help our kids. You're listening to Latched Mama Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Wirt, busy mom of 6 and owner of LatchedMama.com. Join us each week as we talk about pregnancy, breastfeeding, postpartum, and all things motherhood. Hi, Susan. How are you?
I am well. Thanks, Melissa. This is fun.
So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how you became locally, definitely, the kind of temper tantrum guru in Richmond. As far as I know, every article that I've read locally has always been written about you, about temper tantrums.
Yeah.
Stuff,
Well, I am a family life coach, and I think that'd be the first thing to understand is I'm not a life coach. The reason I'm a family life coach is it's sort of a subset. It's about, with me, the way I coach is I try to help the whole family. So if I coach someone with 4 kids, and they say, hey, I really want to work on Robert, I got to fix that boy. I'll say, I'm sorry, this is about more than Robert. Everybody's going to have a voice. Everybody needs to be cared for, and we all need to be able to connect with each other better. So social emotional skills is what I'm really big on. Communication.
Okay.
And I'm also a parent educator. I go in and help teachers with this type of approach it's just positive parenting. I mean, the research is all out there. It's just so good. And I'm also the Family Life Coaching Association chair just recently. And that is an organization that's only 5 years old. Okay. And what we do is we are the hub for all the family life coaches that want to be with us to help them help families.
Okay.
So our whole goal is to help families be healthier and happier and produce resilient children that will actually launch.
Wow. Okay. Goals.
That's the
Hashtag
goal.
goals. Okay. So let's just jump right in.
All right.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I was explaining to Susan when we first started about this TikTok, which unfortunately I have not been able to find to show to her, but it was something that I stumbled on. It was about this woman trying to explain to her child why the banana would go back together and solutions. And the child apparently was having a temper tantrum, but it was a fake child. And it was just the woman was dressed perfectly. The kitchen was clean. It was like all of these different elements to it. And my takeaway from it was, yeah, that was great. That was super gentle parenting. But is this truly what we're putting out there and showing moms? Like, this is what you're supposed to do. Because I think that when something is shown on social media, there's a whole bunch of different messages coming. Mm-hmm. And I really kind of wanted to boil this down and kind of talk about it on a podcast, because we're going to take away kind of some of the other stuff that you kind of get hit with senses wise when you look at social media. And I want to talk about kind of the biological stuff that is happening, especially in those early years, maybe in children. We'll start there. You shared with me a beautiful diagram of a brain.
Uh-huh.
And can you talk a little bit about how a child's brain develops and the different areas that you've kind of highlighted on this thing?
Sure. This is one of the first things when I get a client. The parents need to understand the why. Okay. And actually, it's not why kids have temper tantrums. It's why any of us have meltdowns until we're 90 years old.
Yep.
Because what happens is our emotional brain, especially when we're young, is overdeveloped, and is more developed than our thinking brain. Our thinking brain is the last part of our brain to develop. So our emotions take over and hijack the ability to think. So it What? Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. You're good.
So it downloads. So if we have a threat, there's an amygdala cluster of neurons in the limbic system in the feelings part of the brain, and it's constantly surveying the input. And unfortunately, it reacts with fear mostly, and it sees the input as threats, and it is designed to help us survive. So it is a very basic instinct for a child to look at, a big dog or whatever and kind of say, this is a threat to me, or I didn't get my toy.
Yeah,
more
exactly.
likely.
Yeah.
This is the threat to me, and therefore I'm going to download to the reptilian brain, which is all about survival, fight, flight, and freeze, and let go, because they get all of this cortisol and stress hormones coursing through their bodies. And that is a natural response because that allows them to survive. Now, what we have to teach them, and I've got on my diagram going up the steps, it's like going up the steps from the reptilian brain through the emotional brain up to the feelings brain. And we have to teach them ways to handle those big emotions, those big feelings that say, I'm going to die if I don't get that toy. And then you teach them to use their words.
There you go. It's that words piece. I feel like that is like, if you guys take nothing from this podcast, it took me a lot of kids to get here, and it took me probably therapy myself. It took me reading. It took a lot of things
to learn
therapy to learn that the disconnect between like what's happening inside of your body and being able to actually put words to those feelings is like basically 101 with the brain. Is like, if there's a disconnection there, like I mean, you can correct me because I don't know this for sure, but my guess is that the temper tantrum is just the overwhelming I don't know, and they can't put words to it. And so until they can put words to it, we can't really help them. But teaching them that at a really young age, I feel like is going to benefit them in the future as well. Correct?
I mean, I've worked with a family with a 3-year-old who was very jealous of his little baby, and you may be in this situation, of his little baby sibling who always had the mom's attention because she was nursing him.
Yep.
And so we taught the 3-year-old how to stomp his feet and say, I'm mad. And then he didn't have to go into a temper tantrum. So you teach replacement behaviors, and it actually works. But it takes a while.
I don't know. It's like, why would you ever want to teach a kid to stomp their feet and say they're mad? And like, that was kind of where I was at. Like, because I feel like, isn't that acting out? But it's not.
It's channeling these very 100%. Natural feelings.
And teaching them at a very young age that feelings aren't bad and that feelings are okay and that we all can have them.
Well,
fascinating.
Here's a phrase I love. If you bury an emotion, you bury it alive.
Okay.
How about that?
Wow.
And it just means it will not go away. It needs to be processed. It needs to be dealt with. You need to get it out one way or another. If you teach, I'm always talking about calming corners and angry boxes. You just let them learn. See, here's the main thing. We parents, we keep thinking we have to calm our kid down. We have to teach them to calm themselves down.
Absolutely.
We have to offload this, or you will always be the referee.
Absolutely.
You will always be the external calmer downer.
Yeah.
Or you'll use devices until they've got, they're glassy-eyed.
Absolutely.
So because the devices are a passive thing, they can look at a device and you think, oh, now she's calm. No, what she's done is she is hooked into that device and now she feels like she's okay. Too. And she hasn't learned to say how she's feeling.
Yeah.
And she hasn't learned that, if I need to calm down, I need to go run around the block. Yeah. I need to get on my bike. I need to yell in my corner. I need to tear up a piece of paper and throw it in the basket. But something that lets them get it out. Now, with 6 kids, I don't know. Is that even feasible?
No, absolutely it is. And, one of the biggest takeaways I've had by, kind of making all of these children is that every single one of them is different.
There you go.
Emotionally, my oldest struggles more than my youngest does sometimes. And learning these tools has been more focused on the fact of like, how can we help him? But then as we have helped him, it helps everybody else. But
Absolutely.
You were talking about like the jealous 3-year-old. So number 5 in our family, Catherine, I will name her. I will not just call her number 5. She is like 2 and some change, almost 2.5. And she's gotten to this thing where she wants me to put her pajamas on her every night. And normally at that point, I'm lying in bed nursing the baby because the baby's done. So at 7:30, picture 4 other kids running around in different states of dress, undress, everybody's getting separated, kind of going to their rooms. It's just about bedtime. And Catherine wants me to put her pajamas on her, which would mean I have to unlatch the baby, which means the baby was going to cry. And we've done this battle for the last few months. The baby's 4 months now old now. And I finally looked at her the other night, and because it's a really hard time of day for me too, because I'm exhausted.
You're tired.
I am ready. I am ready for it to be quiet. I'm ready to read a book. I'm ready to just have me time. And I looked at her and I said, you know what, Catherine? I was like, are you mad? Because mama, me, pajamas on. And I'm like, okay, honey. And I said, would you like me to put the baby down? Yes, mama. And I was like, you know what, Catherine, you matter. I was like, and I'm going to put the baby down. She goes, but baby going to cry. She goes, but me cry too. And so she kind of realized that if I didn't put the baby down, she was going to cry. If I put the baby down, the baby was going to cry. But just by making that little switch where I was like, okay, it's okay. The baby's going to cry for the 15 seconds it takes me to put pajamas on Catherine. But what's amazing is then Catherine goes down peacefully. So she doesn't cry. She gets that literally it's 15 seconds with me where I tell her that she matters, that her emotions matter. And then she goes down. In most cases, she'll go to sleep peacefully and nicely, soothes herself to sleep.
You have just deposited in her emotional bank account.
Yeah. So, but I mean,
and she needed that just for that moment.
I know, but it's so funny because it took me so long to realize no, she's it was this battle of wills of I don't want the baby to cry, but you know what? Who's to say the baby's more? It's mostly big
so
family
sweet
stuff, but at the same time, it was acknowledging that she had a feeling that she may or may not be able to put words to, helping her find the words to it, and then validating it.
Yes, and that is what is true. Even when parents tell me, okay, I've even watched this. A little one will bite a parent, and the parent will laugh, because they don't want the little one to feel bad that they bit. And I'm sorry, they need to feel bad that they bit. And I don't say the parent should bite back, because I never believe in violence or physical, that type of thing, reactions. But I do believe that if you take the baby and you say, ow, that hurts. What you did with Catherine is you started her empathy. She began to have empathy for you, that you would have to put a baby down and the baby would cry. That's super duper. But you also gave her just enough so that when a child has a temper tantrum, they are basically, I've heard this from a wonderful author named Tina Fagel. She's in our Family Life Coaching Association. She wrote a book called Present Moment Parenting, How to Deal with an Intense Child. And what she says is that when the child is having a temper tantrum, they are not screaming at you. They're screaming for you. Now, you don't want to hear that when you have 6 kids. It's okay, everybody screams for me all the time. But if you can deal with those intense emotions and say, I know you're upset. And that's what my calm method is about. Just take 1 second and say, I know you're upset. Or, are you upset? Depending on how old the kid is, a question is wonderful for older kids. They don't want you to assume anything. So if you say, oh my gosh, are you feeling upset right now? And then if he corrects you, that's great. Then he's using his words. No, I'm really just frustrated because you did this instead of that. So it just takes a moment to say, I'm connecting with you. The C is for connect. And then you can have the drawbridge sort of open up so that now they can say, okay, I'm safe with you. You see me. I can have a conversation with you about this, or whatever age they are. But that see me thing is so cool, because that is what they want. They want to connect with you. And then
I feel like that's human nature
connect
in general,
one way or another. They are.
Yeah. I mean, so we're going to, I want to go through the letters, because I think it's a great kind of exercise to go through the steps. I am going to preface this by saying that these steps sound fantastic. And I think that the steps are goals. But I also think that, like you said before we started today, just take one thing away. Take one thing away from this podcast. Don't feel like you have to get all of these steps right all the time. But it is pretty cool, though, when even at a really, really young age, and I see it in some of my kids now, that I can slow down enough. And guys, I can slow down enough because most of the time we have 2 nannies and my mom's in town and my husband's present. So I can slow down with 6 kids because of the support that I built into my life.
That's kept you sane.
Yeah, and I built it into my life on on purpose because this stuff I have found as I've parented longer is important. But let's go through the calm method. So this is the method you've developed to help work through moments of big emotion.
Difficult conversations. It can be difficult conversation with a teenager. It can be just a big emotion, big feelings with a little one. But before I get into that, I really want to underscore what you're saying about how I don't want parents to feel like there's a magic wand. They know that. We all know that. I've raised children myself. But sometimes you feel like, like that TikTok that you saw. Well, that's very contrived. But the underlying point is to connect. Okay, so however you connect is important, and to connect with the feelings. We need to read our children books about feelings. There's some fantastic stuff out there that's on all different levels so that they will be able to connect. But there is other stuff out there. Have you seen The Mom Reporter?
No.
Holy cow. It is so funny. It is a true reporter, and she's standing there with a microphone.
I have seen it. Yes.
A play microphone.
Yes, where she's like just reenacting like what is happening.
With her 2-year-old.
With her 2-year-old.
That she was in a terrorist lockdown with her 2-year-old.
Yeah.
He's the terrorist.
Yep.
I mean, it's hilarious, but it's real. I mean, then and then there's also a wonderful goal for us to have. There's another, I guess it was Instagram or something that went viral, and it's Savannah calling 911. She is 5 years old.
Okay.
And because she had a proactive parent who was thinking ahead, like you're doing, what can I do to help this child have some tools so they can calm themselves? She has definitely been trained to keep a cool head. Her father has fallen to the floor with a heart attack.
Wow. Okay.
She calls 911, and then they record the dispatcher saying everything to her, and all she's saying is stuff like, I think he's not breathing, and will you be here soon? And then when the fireman, he says, now I want you to know that the firemen are almost there. She says, well, I'd better change my clothes. I'm in my jammies.
That's so cute.
So then you get, she's 5, but she's very calm, and she has learned to cool herself down and to have the empathy to know that daddy is hurt. So she can't pull on his t-shirt and say, get up. She says, I need to be here for you. And that's what we're trying to teach is character in our children, but not all at once. It's a long process.
It's a long process. Okay.
But the reason I like calm is because it's nothing new. I've just put it in an acronym because I've just done a bunch of research over the last 10 years of doing this coaching, and this is something that you can remember easily.
Okay.
So connect is first. I wanted people to have actual words they could use. And if you say you're angry, you're sad, you're frustrated, I know it's hard. And then hush.
Yeah.
We parents, we just talk like I'm doing now.
Yeah. No, but it's really funny. Like in our household, my husband is much better at this than I am. And it's funny because his mom will come over and she'll demonstrate it, and I'll understand why he's much better at it than I am. And then my mom's there, and my mom is just as bad at it as I am. So I mean, it's very understanding. It's very generational. But like my mom will look at my kids, which we're all working on it together. So I'm sure she listens to this podcast. But she'll be like, "You're fine," and I'll feel myself do the same thing. Like somebody will stub their toe, and I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna kiss it." Well, you're fine. Move on.
Yeah,
whereas my husband is like, holds them and asks them where it hurts and asks them how it happened, and like literally wants to know the full story, wants to know their thoughts on it. Yeah. I mean, it is. It's great, and it's probably the way that it needs to be. But we've got 6 of them, and we have a multi-million-dollar business, and we have 3 dogs and 3 cats and 2 goats and 9 chickens, and I mean, there's always something going on, but it's wonderful to see because I actually have somebody in my household that shows it, demonstrates it for me and reminds me. Oh, and he will call me out in a heartbeat. He'll be like, "Hey, Melissa, you just told him to stop crying. Do you even know why he's crying?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, I don't." So I think the connect thing is super important.
And know that you have to find what works for your family. As a coach, I never tell people to do it a certain way.
This is right. This is something I struggle with, and I can own my.
I'm speaking to your husband too. I mean, he may be taking too long because what we need to do.
He's good at this. He's not good at everything, guys, but he's good. He's good at this first part.
That's sweet. Yeah, and he might do it to you too. When you're upset, I hope he says,
I don't get
tell
upset.
me about this. Oh, you never do.
I don't get upset
well,
because hey, let's talk back about it though, because let's talk about generationally. I don't normally get upset because my mom said, like, you're okay. Do you understand what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
So if you look at that, like, I'm not going to necessarily get upset in a situation where.
Have you got tools that keep you from getting upset?
Oh, I
what do
don't
you
know.
do?
I don't.
You just don't want to go there.
I don't know. I know. No. But
Let's talk about this, Melissa.
No. What I'm saying is, What I'm saying is that it's very easy to see generationally when you step back and you look at the bigger picture.
Oh, totally. We get so much from our parents.
Yeah, and in some ways, I feel like this company is what it is and our family is what it is because I don't always slow down.
You are cool,
I don't
though.
Exactly. So there's definitely, I feel like, benefits to both sides, but there's a middle ground somewhere.
But see, that's what you're doing for your children. Your children see you not getting emotional, and your children hopefully will learn tools. They'll say, "Oh, I need to go off and breathe deeply so I can be like mom."
Yeah.
But with your
like,
husband,
hey, let's not scream at every time we bump our elbow on the wall.
But you're not smacking them and saying, "Hush up," and figure it out for yourself.
There's a middle ground somewhere, but it's very interesting to see people come to relationships, especially parenthood relationships, with different skills and different skill sets because we were all raised,
That's what makes
in
it
different.
So fun, yeah,
fun,
and really fun. It is fun. We're going to use that word. Another great word is interesting. It makes it so interesting
and fun. Okay, so we validate. So
so that's it. And you do it quickly as you need to.
We're helping them find words.
Yes.
To name their feelings that they're having.
Name it to tame it. That's what Dan Siegel says.
Which
He's
is
another amazing author.
A great life skill. Because if you can teach that, like I have one that came out of the womb being able to do it. Because I have so many of them.
Sweet.
He's 4. Yeah, he's 4. And he will tell you, he will walk up to you and be like, Mom, I'm angry. Mom, I'm sad. Mom, I'm very frustrated about this.
How did he learn that, Melissa?
I have no idea. Maybe he was put on the planet to teach me. I have no idea. But he's still, to this day, like he is, his like first word, I think, was like frustrated. Like, he will walk up to you and he will try and tell you exactly how he's feeling.
So
and
cool. I have
it
a
makes
daughter like that.
Makes him much easier to parent. Much easier to parent. Sometimes I don't want to hear it. Sometimes I'm like, okay, that's great. You're frustrated. Go play with your sibling.
Or go talk to your older brother.
Yeah.
See, this is another thing that maybe not in your family, but I do find that with my clients, the older children and the younger children start teaching each other. I mean, the kids in the back seat of the car, one parent said, I couldn't believe it. My little boy said, how are you feeling? To his little sister.
Oh,
yeah. And then you have kids who say, calm down, and they take their 6-year-old brother. The 6-year-old brother was upset. Let's see, the 3-year-old daughter was upset, and he said, Mom, my Mary needs to take some big breaths.
Wow.
And then I taught a little one how to, because I did a lot of teaching, and I taught a little one how to use a pinwheel to blow the breath. And the next time the parents came to see me, she said, do you know she ran and got a pinwheel for me the last time I was upset?
Oh,
that is
so
why
sweet.
I'm a family life coach, because I want all the kids to help each other with these things. And then you
really
commend
cool.
that. You say, oh, that's so loving. You don't say, what a good kid. You say, that's so loving. You use the character piece.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool.
So
I like it.
It happens. It happens. Yeah. So anyway, the C is for connect first, and the A is for assert. Now, that's the boundaries. In my parenting pyramid, which you could see on my website, first is unconditional love. That's the connecting piece. That's I'm safe for you. You can tell me.
Okay.
Then you get to the boundaries, because if you don't give your kids boundaries, they are chaotic. They don't know where to go. They don't know what to think, because they don't know where you will stop them, and where their choice means they can get chaotic and nobody will stop them. And that makes them feel chaotic inside.
Okay.
So we give them firm, what I have a mentor who says firm and friendly boundaries. So that means you say, in our house, we do no name calling. Mm-hmm. This is not what remember we've talked about this, because I'm a proactive parent and I use positive parenting techniques. So little Richard, we do not, why did I say little Richard? But anyway, Richard, we do not, only some people of some ages will understand that anyway. We do not name call. Now, how can you do that differently? And because we don't use name calling, because it's not loving, and our family is loving. Mm-hmm. So that's the character piece. You've got the boundary. He already knows this. We've talked about it. Mm-hmm. And so then you can say things like, well, I've got in my calm thing, no, throwing toys is not what we do in this family. We're kind and loving. I just believe in connecting everything to character, because you want a kind and loving and peaceful family. Mm-hmm. Now that, that's kind of like nirvana. But you want more progress toward that every day. And you want the kids to look for that. You want the kids to be proud of themselves for being kind and loving, not for being abrasive. And if somebody hurts you, this is how my dad did. My dad was my best psychologist. If I came home and I said, Sally hurt me today, she kicked me in the shins, you know what he'd say? What do you think a parent might say if his knee-jerk reaction if he saw his daughter hurt?
I'm going to go kick her in the shins.
There you go. That's what I'm going to call her parents.
Yep.
Or I sure hope you got back at her.
Yeah.
Or if you're a really great parent, you might say, what'd you do to deserve that?
Oh.
But what he would say is, I wonder what's going on in Sally's home.
Wow.
Yeah. I wonder what's going on with Sally. And I'd say, yeah, she probably had a bad day today. Not that he invalidated
that's a
where
good
I
dad.
am, but he was always teaching me how to look under the hood.
Yep. Yeah.
There's got to be a reason. Okay. So asserting means that you're saying, I believe in character. We have talked about character in this family. This is not the first time we've heard this. And this is crossing our boundaries as a family. And then you get to the learning moment. If you've connected and you've reminded them of something that's not a surprise, you set them up for success by preaching this ahead of time. Then they get into a learning mode. That's the L. Make it a teachable moment. Lord knows everything's a teachable moment.
Can
Go
we
ahead.
sidestep a little bit? I mean, I think once
I saw
you
your
get
eyes
to
going
maybe,
like,
I mean, I think once you get to maybe the 6, 7, 8, you can say, hey, you're being a bully. We've talked about this before. We're kind and loving in our house. Da, 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 da. But I mean, what do you do with the 3-year-old who's throwing a toy and you say, no, we're kind and loving, and then they chuck the toy at your face? Then
you pull them away and say, no more toys tonight. You're kind and loving, and that was not nice. That is unacceptable.
Okay, so then
no more toys.
Then they throw themselves on the floor and they say, I'm not going to bed. What happens then?
Well, that's a manipulative temper tantrum. Okay. There are two kinds of temper tantrums. The manipulative ones say, I'm going to be a monster until you get me what you want, until you give me what I want.
Okay. But they're also having feelings at that point, though.
They are, because they didn't get what they wanted.
But they're not feeling kind and loving.
Yeah.
And they're like, screw this.
Yeah.
Like, what am I supposed to do now?
Well,
they're not feeling heard, correct? Because they're probably throwing that toy for a reason.
Yeah, and they've got to learn that that's not how you get attention. You get attention by calming yourself and then doing it right. And you can have a do-over. You can have a make it right. You can say, but if they're in the middle of their temper tantrum, remember, that is the limbic hijack. They cannot hear you. Okay. You can't look at them and say, honey, I really want you to breathe. It won't happen.
It's not going to work. Yeah.
So you just let them go. Now, if they're going to hurt themselves, you have to stay close to them or hold them or whatever. I've seen teachers hold kids in their laps who are just flailing. And then suddenly, boom, they calm down. So if your child is the kind that calms down when being held, now you have some children who can't stand to be touched. Then they need to let it out. But then you always need to debrief after it's done. Maybe when they're calm and it's in bath time or something like that, you say, and try to find the positive. Honey, I'm so glad you calmed down today. I bet it helped to have me near. Or I bet did it help when I hugged you or something like that. 3-year-olds are still so close to 2-year-olds.
Yep.
They're just in the emotion. So you just have to be safe for them and make sure that they can get it out and then go on and then make sure that in a quiet moment you say, when we throw toys, well, what happened, Mary? And Mary will say, I didn't get to play with it anymore. And that's going to happen every time, Mary. Your consequences and your boundaries must happen every time or they've got you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
They've got you.
Yep. Okay.
So does that help?
Yeah, no, it does. I just don't want people to think that you can say to most 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds,
no,
we don't throw toys in this family. We're a kind family. And then suddenly we're on to step 3 where we all learn from it and we all go off and sit down and eat dinner.
They're going to get it out.
Not going to happen.
Yeah, they're going to get it out. I've seen families where the kids would like throw couch cushions and things. That would never have happened if they didn't get ahead of it and say, no, we don't throw cushions. I use my mama voice. It's unacceptable. And then this is what we're going to do instead. And you grab the kid and you take them to the calming down corner or you sit with them until they can get done with it.
About throwing couch cushions.
There's a 4-year-old who does.
There's a 6-year-old and 9-year-old at my house that throws it every day, and I prefer the couch cushions being thrown instead of the harder toys.
Well, if that's safer for your family, go with it.
I mean, it's couch cushions being thrown because they're playing, not couch cushions. Not couch cushions to be thrown to be mean or angry or something, feeling an emotion.
It's a big toy.
Yes. Okay. Anyways,
that's different.
So, all right. So how do we make this a teachable moment?
So then, and I'm thinking, the older they are, the more words they can use, the more abstract they can think.
Yep.
So yeah, when you're 2 and 3, you have to adapt to your child, but you do give the message that whatever it is you're crying about, if this is a manipulative temper tantrum and you give the kid a toy and they immediately dry up, then you've proven that was a temper, and that they got you.
And can we talk about the fact that sometimes
you have
we're
to.
going to do that?
Sometimes.
Okay.
I
Thanks.
think something that will help you, Melissa.
What?
Let me give you a little phrase. I learned in my research one time, because she has a multi-million-dollar company, and I'm saying, let me help you.
No, help me. No, I just think it's really funny. But
Seriously,
okay, go ahead.
It's just so overwhelming. It is so overwhelming what you're dealing with. But okay, there are 2 phrases I want to give you. One is that if you do the best with your children emotionally, 60% of the time,
okay,
your children will grow up healthy emotionally.
60%.
60. Does that give you a little berth there?
If you do the best, hold on. If
you can be calm and teach a tool instead of throwing cushions in the bad way.
Yeah.
You take the cushions down and you say, you can do this instead. You can jump up and down on your or I'll take the dog out with you, or we're going to get rid of this emotion in a safe way. We're not going to hurt anything.
Okay.
If you can do that 60% of the time, not 100% of the time,
okay,
you will still have healthy children.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, no.
Most parents are like, good, I've got some margin of error.
Yeah, no. I know. I'm just saying that I think every once in a while, if a kid is having a temper tantrum because they want a lollipop, giving them a lollipop is not.
You're
saying 40% of the time I can give them a lollipop and they're still going to be okay.
You can choose your battles.
All right.
But don't give them a lollipop if they've just hit their friend.
Yeah, no,
I'm never,
not
ever give them a lollipop for hitting their friend.
For hitting their friend. But if they're on the floor and they're crying and I have to make dinner and they're crying because they want a lollipop,
you got to get
I'm
some
going
sanity.
to give them a lollipop and I can do that 40% of the time is what you're saying. And they're going to be okay.
I hear this percentage being very important.
All right. Okay. No, it's just how many times out of 10 does that give me the opportunity to give them a lollipop?
Now you got to calculate it for each child.
Oh, yeah.
But see, as your children learn social emotional behavior, and they're learning it in school, this is very...
Oh, they're homeschooled.
Okay. Well, that's a little different. But you can learn it anywhere. And the bottom line is, if your children are socially, emotionally, and you're doing great. If they are healthy, then they can help each other. And you really need to start calling on each other.
No, absolutely, they do.
There
I'll look at somebody and say, hey, you just accidentally hurt your brother. He's crying now. What do you think we should be doing? And
Good, that's a question.
And it's like, oh, I should be asking him if he's okay. I should be giving him a hug. I should be asking him what he needs. So yeah, we're okay. I just don't want anybody to listen to this and think that giving in is going to make it so they have terrible manipulative children. Every once in a while you have to choose your battles. Okay.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that. Yeah, we are all human, and there's no such thing as a perfect parent or a perfect family. Okay, so when you want to get into learning, something that's been very comfortable for people, I follow another coach called Amy McCready with Positive Parenting Solutions, and she calls it a do-over and a make it right.
Okay.
And I have used this so much. If you don't want to give a consequence and come up with a darn consequence every single time, they're hard to come up with. So instead, you say, well, let's have a do-over. So the child is yelling at the other child. And you go, honey, we don't do that in this house. That is not a loving thing. I know, you're laughing. We don't do this in this house. We try to be kind. Is that better?
I love it.
All right.
I love it. Perfect.
We are kind. Okay, because if you don't connect it to character.
No, I love it. I love it. I think the connect, my takeaway so far is connecting it to character.
Yeah, because you
that.
want to make it intrinsic. You don't want the child to always depend on you to say, Mom, was that okay or not? They should feel it on the inside.
Yep.
And say, this is not good.
And they have to connect with that feeling.
Thank you.
Okay.
Boy,
All right, go ahead.
That was really good. So when you learn, you say, let's have a do-over. And then they go and they say, go ahead and I forgot where I was, but they've just yelled at they've yelled at their sibling and now they have a do-over so they can use a nicer tone. That does work like magic. I mean, I love telling children, now that sounded very harsh.
Do you want to try again?
We want to try again.
Yep.
And then they get feeling better because they've done it right. You're looking for them to feel better about doing it right.
So anecdotally speaking, let's say when you look at a child and you either say, hey, that wasn't kind. Do you want to do it again?
Well, not do you want to do it again? Let's do it again.
Let's do it again. So you're not giving them the option. No. You're telling. So that's basically their consequence. Their consequence is slowing life down for a second, not going on to do what they were going to go do. They're gonna redo it, and they're gonna stand there and figure it out and do it correctly. I like that a lot.
I have another anecdote for you. 2 boys are upstairs. Mom says, "Come down the stairs and we'll go out for dinner."
Okay.
But you can't come downstairs until you clean your room.
Okay.
So both of them getting like a, Tasmanian devil whirling, and they whirl and twirl and they get it done. And then they both come downstairs, but one of them comes down faster than the other and knocks his brother into the wall with his elbow so that he can get down
That never
first.
happens in our house.
Never.
Never.
Okay. So realistically, it can happen with other families, not with yours.
No. I have 2. My oldest 2 are 2 boys that are 20 months apart. So I mean that exact example, other than going out to dinner, because we don't go out to dinner because we have so many children, is about on par to what happens.
Okay. So the two kids come down the steps. One kid, one boy, and it can be a girl, knocks into the, so he gets down first. And you know what the mom says? She says, "Tony, I don't care as much about getting to dinner on time as I do about how you show love for your brother. That was very unkind. It was very unloving." I know you just laugh.
No, I love it. I love it.
I mean, these parents,
absolutely.
I
love that. No, I'm laughing.
And so here's
I'm
the
laughing
redo.
because I'm trying to figure out what I would have said in that moment.
I can't wait.
And it was not probably what you just said.
So she says, "I care more about you showing love for your brother and being kind to your brother than I do about getting to," so she's already sacrificing getting to dinner on time. It's like, I don't care, because relationship, we have a lot. Okay, here's a great quote. Yeah. We have a lot on our plate. Relationship is the plate.
Yep. 100%
Isn't that
agree
great?
with
Okay.
that. Yep.
So she says, "I want you to go back." This is the do-over. She says, "I want you to go back upstairs and I want you to come back down, and your brother's going to get in the car first and he's going to get to call shotgun or whatever." Okay. So, easy, quick.
Yeah.
But she made him go back up and then come down. He didn't win by shoving his brother. So that's what a learning moment is. You can do a do-over. You can do a make it right. You can say.
But you have to address it.
Yeah. Well,
you probably
60% of the time. I'm just trying to keep you from.
No, I love it.
I love it.
From just no. I like it.
It is good if you can address it. And then here's the hard part: is the one reason I love being a family life coach is because my parents always feel better after talking to me, because they've learned to talk to themselves, to have couch time at the end of the day, 15 minutes, that they.
With adults.
2 adults.
Okay.
Just kind of going over the day and kind of saying, okay, I'm going to put my device down. I'm going to see how you're doing. I'm not going to give you advice. I'm just going to kind of say, did it go okay with Catherine today?
Okay.
And mom says, it went terribly with Catherine. Da, da, da. And dad does not say, well, why didn't you do this? Or why didn't you do that? He's just there to say, tell me more.
Okay.
And if you can model that kind of thing in front of your children, then they will learn to turn to each other and say, you must be angry. And that is the only way that you can be able to do that, is to get your own bandwidth. And bandwidth comes from doing things that fill you up, fill up your emotional bank account. So if you can teach, and my husband and I have had this conversation, I would say, honey, I don't really want advice now. Or he would say, Susan, I don't think this is about the shoes that I left on the floor. I think this is about something that just happened yesterday. And I'd say, yeah, it really is. Yeah. So he's willing to connect with me first before he gets mad at me for correcting him or whatever.
I feel like those are very, very healthy
You can
tools.
get there. Everybody can.
And I mean, everybody can get there, but I think that you have to want to get there. Like, and you have to realize the value of getting there. I think a lot of people are walking around that are not incredibly healthy, and then we're building these families and everything is kind of snowballing on itself.
So true. It's so true. And if they can read, they are adult books, The Whole Brain Child, Present Moment Parent. If the children can see the feeling books,
some resources,
they all learn.
I know you mentioned some books when you first came in here. Do you have favorites that you would recommend?
Yeah. Well, let me also say that I just finished with a client. I only have to meet 4 to 6 times for them to get their parenting bag full, their toolkit full. But that's because we also deal with the social emotional piece. And if they can improve their more healthier way of looking at things, like you say, then they can use these tools and everything gets more calm and not perfect. There's still a lot of, there's always going to be crying and stuff, but these particular people said, I'm going to write you a testimonial that says, working on our parenting has given us more respect and more intentionality about how we parent. So I'm not just going through the journey. They both said it just helped us appreciate every day with our kids to the point where we go, I'm going to intentionally try to develop this in our children and that in our children. And he said, before we started thinking this way, we were just going through the motions. We were just trying to get through the day.
Yep.
And that is where we miss so much. And it's so easy to do because we're just trying to get through the day. So if you can put things like checklists for your children to go by, things that will help them to plan and deal with emotions for themselves and all of those things, you get a lot of help from your family.
Yeah. I mean,
and then you have a better time in parenting.
I remember like when I first became a parent, I mean, who knows where this all came from, but I wasn't really hung up, but I was kind of like, I want my kids to be good at sports, or I want my kids to be, this or that. And then our life has kind of taken this beautiful shift that has probably been a little bit led by my husband, who had a very different childhood than me. But, we built this business, we live on a farm, we homeschool our kids. And suddenly the things that bring me joy are the moments where they do have those character moments, or those moments where I've really realized that they're acting the way they are because we've demonstrated it for them.
Beautiful.
And those are the moments that I'm like, I feel the most success in parenthood. And once you start feeling, like you said, that bucket, like once you start feeling those little moments, it does fill your bucket, and it does make it all start to feel a little bit less chaotic and a little bit more intentional, maybe.
Exactly. And the more intentional you are, the more forethought you have, and the more ability you are to say, hon, I know you, I know you kicked the dog, and I know why you did it. And we're going to deal with that later. You're going to be doing some things that take care of the dog. But honey, I'm so proud of you for pulling back and for telling me about it. So you try to always shape the behavior by saying, this is the thing you did that was good. This got you pulled up out of that limbic hijack.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about consequences? Are there positive consequences? Like where, like you just said, you kicked the dog, you're going to be doing some things later to take care of the dog. I love that. I hadn't even, I hadn't even thought about that being, because, so many people are like, you're grounded, or go to your room, or go to timeout. Like I sometimes struggle, especially in those like very, very chaotic moments of a loud household, of finding the proper consequence for an action. Does it need to be done exactly after the action happens? Does that make sense?
It's hard to do that, but it's best. Like if your child is like, and this is all in the learning part, the CAL. So
okay, cool. So we're like still in the right place.
We're still in the acronym.
I love it.
You teach a child that your consequences, once you've agreed on them, if you've got older children, go ahead and let them help you with the consequence.
Okay.
But if it's something like throwing the sand out of the sandbox, then no, they don't get to play with the sandbox, and they lose their time with their friend, and they have to do something else. All right, that's an immediate consequence. But if you make it into timeout, a lot of people say, well, I'm just going to make you sit there in the chair and think about how you could have made a better decision. What do you think that child's thinking while he's in the chair?
I don't know. Does it mess up his unconditional love? Mommy's doesn't love me. Mommy's disappointed in me.
It could be. It could be. It's mostly I want to get out of this dang chair, and I hate my world right now.
Yeah.
They can't. What you've done by putting them in timeout without helping them have tools to calm themselves down is you said you got to sit there and think about how bad you are. Yeah. And that's not guilt. That's shame. Shame is like, I'm a bad person. Okay. I hate this. I hate my sister for getting me in trouble.
Where does that come from?
Unfortunately, it's human nature.
Okay.
Because what we try to do is we always, it's Renee Brown's best thing is that we want to live wholehearted lives, but we keep thinking we're not good enough. Yeah. And we learn through shaming, like people who spank their children. And I understand a little pop on the bottom when they're 2 or 3, but talk to people who spank their 9-year-old boy.
Oof.
That's humiliating. That's
Yeah.
shaming. And if we do things like that, we are not saying, I respect you as a human being. And I can find other ways to make you make it right or understand that this is not acceptable in our house. So shaming is just something that is a very useful tool. And we feel it ourselves sometimes when we put it on our children.
Yeah.
So I'm not a therapist, so
Yeah.
can't go too much into
Yeah,
that.
no,
But
I
Renee
just-
Brown's great
But
on that.
it's interesting to watch. Like, I mean, I'm not saying I'm a great parent. I'm not saying I'm a bad parent, but there are moments where it's almost like it happened in an age with each kid. So I know it's probably not 100% our parenting. It might be something that just starts to kick in where like I will discipline them, or there will be a consequence, or there'll be a conversation, or I will tell them in some way that I'm disappointed in them, which I probably could do a better job of in terms of my wording.
Well, disappointed at the choice they make.
Yeah.
Not in them.
Absolutely. But their reaction is, I'm the worst person ever,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
And like, for me, that was always such a like punch in the gut as a parent. And I'm like, where did they get that from? All I've ever done is love them and da 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 da. But I think some of it must be a little human nature as the brain develops, trying to figure out the difference between making a bad decision and being a bad person.
There you go. That's the difference between guilt and shame.
Yeah.
Guilt is I did something bad and I can fix it.
Yeah.
Shame is I am a bad person and I'll always be. And
Yeah.
my parents hate
So
me.
it's just teaching them the difference. Of
Teaching them the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had so many parents say, my kid is perfect at school, but they come home and they're crazy.
Yeah.
And that's because you're very safe.
Yep. Absolutely.
You're very safe
Yep.
and they know that they can let it out with you. But what they're looking for is a connection that if you make into more of a positive connection than a negative connection, like in other words, they don't have to scream and cry to get your attention.
Yep.
You're going to grab them when they come home and you're going to say, let's sit down for 5 minutes and talk about your day or talk about your toy or whatever. And you find ways to connect and fill their bucket. Then they can go off like your Catherine did.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So move on.
Yeah. So actually, for the listeners, she
Yep.
wasn't telling me to move on in a bad way. Move on is my last one, CALM. And move on is something we parents tend to not do. We tend to kind of say, now, Johnny, if you hadn't done that, then everything would be better. Or if you had done what I said, or I told you so. And all of that just drills in them that they are shameful and they're awful. And what we should do is just move on and say, now, your consequences paid up. You did really good with washing with shampooing the dog.
Yep.
He looks great. Good for
Yep.
you. I hope you feel good about it because you showed a lot of love. Let's go to dinner.
Love it.
Move on, because there will be many other chances.
And can we talk about how when we feel like we have not done the calm or not handled something correctly, we should probably move on as well and just do it right the next time? Is that a
Yeah,
good
and there's
answer?
nothing wrong with apologizing to your child.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that's a very powerful thing. And choose those very carefully. You
Yep.
don't want to be submissive and permissive and
Yep.
all of that. But, if you feel like, you've blamed him for something he really wasn't to be blamed for or whatever, or maybe you yelled. When we yell at our children, and we're going to do it, they learn that yelling is okay. And
Yep.
they try to yell back because they have to do something called equilibrium. If you yell, they yell, then you yell louder and they yell. It's just an escalation of things. But if you can just move on and just say, I am so sorry I yelled at you, and then maybe go ahead and use your feelings and
Yep.
say, I was feeling really frustrated because my boss did this, or I was late to that and it just made me feel like I was so helpless. Or have you ever felt devastated by something? Use these wonderful words
Yep.
and let them begin using them and name it to tame it.
I love it. Cool. Any last takeaways for everybody?
I feel like I've talked on and on.
No, it's been fantastic. I mean, I think that these are such it's such an important thing to learn, because I think when we start, like I said before, when we start being able to connect with our kids, it kind of changes parenthood a bit, because it
think
almost
exactly right.
allows you to kind of be in the journey with them and not necessarily always be leading them. I mean, you're leading them, but when you're together with somebody in something, it's almost like, I don't know, it takes some of the chaos away and it makes it a little bit more intentional, I feel like.
I guess if I had to leave something, I would say that I messed up as a parent too. Please know that I did not know all this stuff until I studied like a crazy person.
Yeah.
Starting about 2012, I got really into social emotional learning. And one thing I realized was that I missed something about my oldest daughter. And it was very painful to realize that. And she, at one point, she's grown now. She's 32. and she's loving and she's generous, but we will always have certain things that we can't really connect on because it's still a little bit painful. And I think what it was presence. I was a mover and a shaker. I was always trying to check off those boxes, make sure they had a really great birthday party, made sure they had all these kids over, made sure that this was right and that was right. And I didn't just, when I would see her and have a feeling that maybe she was getting a little down, I could have gone into her bedroom and sat with her in her bed and said, tell me about it, and let her cry and be okay and not have to have the answers.
Can I ask
So that's
how you realized that had happened?
As I got older, I saw these things and I saw them coming out in her, and she was growing and I was growing. I believe in therapy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make sure you start a bank account to pay for your children's therapist. But it's really so well done nowadays.
Yeah.
Therapy is so balanced, and when you have therapy, you learn how to have the same vocabulary with your family. So we got on the same vocabulary, to tell you the truth.
That's awesome.
And we were able to talk. And I also let her be an adult. I never had my children. It was like 21.
Yeah.
You were paying for this and you're paying for that, and they found a way.
Yeah.
But she, at one point, I'll call her Lucy. Lucy, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I was not there for you when I could have been more present. And she put her hand over mine and she said, Mom, you did the best with what you knew.
Wow. Did she go to
She had
therapy as
grown-
well?
Yes.
Okay.
This is an ad for therapy.
Oh no, don't worry. That's what Lindy and I are talking
So
about in
funny.
the next episode. Is actually
Is
we're gonna
it? It's
we're gonna cut it
beautiful
up
nowadays.
because she started about, I don't know, probably 2 years ago, and then I caught on about a year ago. But it's very interesting, and it has completely changed the way I parent my children, and
Really?
hopefully is going to have a larger impact on
remember.
Yeah, but I love
You
the
were
fact
modeling
that
too.
so much of this came from kind of embracing your own vulnerability and your own mistakes.
Thank you.
And
That's sweet.
I kind of wish we had started there. So hopefully everybody is still listening to this podcast, because I think it is such an important takeaway that we're not all supposed to have this. But I think the one responsibility we do have to our kids is try to get as healthy as possible.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this stuff becomes a lot easier. I feel like once you're kind of more in tune to your inner self and your
All
true
about
self.
learning. And,
Yeah.
if I had taken that mistake I made and said, I'm a terrible mom, which I went through a stage of saying,
Yeah, absolutely.
then I wouldn't have grown.
Yeah.
You just have to know everything's a learning.
And now you're trying to help other
moment.
people.
I am.
And that is incredible. And I love that. Yay. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it.
It was super. You're so much fun to talk to.
Aw,
Thank you.
Thanks.